I have watched that final scene of this episode of ReZero at the very least 10 plus times. No joke. That scene, when Subaru finally has everything going well, when he finally is putting on a smile, he sees someone he's been fighting for Emilia this entire time. When he finally gets that, Betelgeuse takes over his mind, and he has to leave and run away, and he can't even speak to the person he loves. That scene is so sad. It's so sad. Like, let me just, before I dive into the review and talk about the scenes individually, just, I gotta believe the emotions I have with that finale of this episode. What makes that scene so sad? It's not the fact that Subaru is dying, because he's probably going to come back. Everything's going to, he's going to come back, he's going to get reset. It's not that. It's not the fact that he is dying. It's the fact that the meaning of the death and all he has accomplished to this point is getting reset. And that is the sadness of that. It's a depressing death. Probably one of the saddest deaths Subaru's ever had. Besides the death scene when his head just gets decapitated and it falls off. That was a sad death. That was a very sad death. But besides that death, though, this was just sad because after all the shit he has been through, all of this madness, this shit, this hellhole he has been in, and he's finally just reached up and he's crawled himself out of this damn pit. He's crawled out of it. And when he finally sees the light, he finally sees Emilia, it's taken away. He's just dragged right back into the damn darkness. That's exactly what happens. And it's such a sad finale of this episode. The cliffhanger, fuck that cliffhanger. Like, fuck that cliffhanger. But not gonna focus on that. Just, it's so sad. It really got to me when you just see how this man, if you think about all the shit he has accomplished, what he has done since his last death, it just, you're like, holy crap. This man has literally changed himself. Like, look, he's talked to Rim. After his last death, he talked to Rim. He talked to Rim, he talked to her about everything, they could, like, confess to each other, he got to lay his entire heart on the table, finding out more about Subaru, details that we didn't even know about. And then after that entire confession with Rim, then he goes off to make everything right, talks to everyone, sets up with these merchants, to Crush, to Felis, everyone, and he finally sets up to take down the White Well. He brings down the White Well, an enemy for the past 400 years. And after all these sacrifices to everybody, and after finally taking it down, he can finally go to his main objective, taking down the witch's cult. And on his way, after seemingly like he finally won, he beat Betelgeuse's body, it seemed like he killed majority of Betelgeuse's fingers, he knew he was still around, but he killed majority of them, and then they were carrying on to the village. And in this episode, they killed a bunch, and it seemed like everything was fine. And then, after all of this he's accomplished, all of this, to fight for Emilia, to get to that endgame, it's taken away. And the shitty part about all of this is that this man, we don't know where he is going to reset to. Well, we have no idea. There is a possibility this man could reset before his conversation with Rim. Think about that. This man literally could reset before that conversation ever happened. And think about how tragic that is alone. Just that conversation with Rim and Subaru, just think about that alone. That's not even getting into the stuff with the White Well. That's not getting into the stuff with Subaru finally making amends for what he has done. You know, being mature, talking to Julius, fighting the witch's cult, everything. And that if that all gets reset, just think about the tragedy of that, how sad that is, how much this man has accomplished in getting reset back. It's like this. Let's say you're playing a game, okay? You're playing a game where you have to save, there's no auto-save, and this has happened to me on an RPG. Like, it legit has happened to me. To where, like, I'd say I'd wake up, it was when I was very young, I think it was around, like, 13 or 14. It was a long time ago. I played, like, a certain game where you would have to save, and there's no auto-save. And I remember getting up around, like, 8 in the morning, whatever, started playing around, like, 10 o'clock in the day, and then I played it until, like, nighttime. I was just on it all day. And here's the thing. I saved only once. I saved around like 1 o'clock in the day, like 1 p.m., and then I didn't save at all. and I finally, like, lost, like, there was a power surge at the end of the day, and I lost everything. And then I realized I lost all that day's work of what I did in that game because I didn't save. That's kind of what's going on here. It's a little bit more extreme because, you know, what's going on with Subaru because it's not necessarily a game. But the point stands is that Subaru literally lost all this work he has set out to do in a matter of seconds. And to make it even crueler, it's when he finally sees hope. It's just, he's dragged away from it. He literally is just pulled back in. And that reminds me so much of the opening song, ReZero's opening song. Go back to the first opening song. I even talked about when I was talking about the OP discussion, when I was talking about, like, the opening song. In the opening song, there is actually a scene where Subaru's stepping out of the darkness and all that, and he sees all the main female characters. He sees this bright light, and as he's happy and all that, and he's going towards them, you see this hand come out and just drag him straight back in, and repeats the entire process. That's kind of exactly what this reminds me of. It's where he gets dragged back in. But enough of that, okay? I'll get in that scene. I'll dive into more details of that scene when I get to it. Let's just start with the beginning, okay? So, you know what? Actually, no, I want to talk about one scene, okay? I want to talk about the trigger scene. Oh, Subaru, I'm talking about a funnier moment. Subaru, my boy, you need to stop triggering our boy Petelgeuse. You need to stop triggering this man. This man is so damn pissed. I talked about it last week. Like, when you had where Subaru's like, oh, I threw away the book and all that after I used it as, you know, a kosher and all that. I threw it away. Petelgeuse got so triggered. This man went straight after Subaru. Like, he just didn't talk anymore. He just seemed like he was just so fucking mad. He wanted to strangle Subaru. And then in this episode, Subaru once again, this man once again taunts Petelgeuse. Like, he's like, if you keep yelling at me like that, you're gonna make my brain tremble. And I'm like, bro, just chill the fuck out. Like, just Subaru, like, my boy, that is so fucked. Stop making fun of Petelgeuse. Like, damn. Like, holy crap. I mean, I know this man's an asshole, what he's done to you in the past, but damn, you do not trigger a man. You do not trigger this man. Like, just stop. Oh my god. Like, I mean, Subaru had it coming. He brought it upon himself with the entire ending sequence after just triggering this man twice. Not once, but twice. This man straight up made a fool of this man twice. Like, you keep yelling at that, you're gonna make my brain tremble. And he just stops talking. He's like, I'm gonna kill you and all that. Like, die him and just, oh. That scene is so good. It's such a funny scene. Subaru keeps making fun of Petelgeuse. This man keeps making fun of him. Like, my boy, you need to chill. If you don't chill, this man is literally going to make your life a living hell. And I guess that's kind of what he did. I mean, Petelgeuse got the last laugh. He took over Subaru's body and forced him to get killed. So, technically, Petelgeuse got the last laugh, but it's the point, my boy, Subaru, you caused that kind of, you really did, and that's subtle foreshadowing, by the way, that's very subtle foreshadowing. But getting off that, let's talk about the details at the beginning of the episode. Okay, diving straight in, let's talk about the Ram stuff, the entire sequence with, like, entering, like, a different world or something, the way the entire world looked kind of a little bit, you know, I guess, bluish. Let's talk about that. So, apparently, everybody in the camp, the caravan, all that was traveling to where the village was, they got bewitched. For instance, they were under an illusionary spell, and they were stuck. They were just by themselves, they couldn't get out of it. And it was thanks to Julius that all of them managed to get out of it. Now, here is the thing, okay? We got to find out that, apparently, Subaru has a connection, or an affinity, to spirits, or spirit arts. And this is something fascinating. Because this hints at something maybe for the possibility of the future. Maybe what happened towards the end of this episode. Now, let's talk about it. So, as we know, Subaru, he can use, like, shadowish magic. We've seen it before. He can use it, but he can't really control it. He's pretty damn bad at using magic. But we know he can use shadow magic. And that is a very rare type of magic. We know that it's rare. It was even stated. Now, when it comes to spirits as well, I think that's rare as well. I think it is. I think it was stated some time ago, a while back, it was stated that spirits, or using spirit-type magic, is rare too. But regardless, though, you have it to the point to where Subaru, this man has an affinity to spirits. And I'm kind of curious about this. Like, why does he have an affinity towards spirits? A strong affinity. You have it where Julius states that when he tried to make everybody connected through the gates, he was using his spirits and all that to connect everybody to where he could bring them back and out of the illusion. Subaru, his head started hurting. He started hearing a bunch of people at once, and he had to where Julius like, whoa, this shouldn't be happening. Like, you shouldn't be experiencing this. Like, the spirits are not fine-tuning this entire, like, connection with everyone. Like, whoa, what the hell's going on? And Subaru was just having this overloaded feedback coming from everyone, hearing everybody what they're saying, and it was hurting him. And eventually, it stopped hurting him, but Julius states that you most likely have a very strong connection to spirits, and I wonder what exactly this means, because there's a lot of hints of what this can mean. Maybe one day, Subaru might gain some form of ability to where he might be able to use some form of spirits. That's a possibility. Or maybe there's something else going on here. Maybe spirits are attracted to Subaru and maybe they act differently. Or maybe they're stronger when they're near him. There's a lot of questions to have because we don't know entirely how the magic of ReZero works. I mean, I've talked about this in the past when I got into my Satella's True Goal video. I talked about we don't really know how the entirety of magic in the verse of ReZero works. We know there's spirit magic. We know there's shadow magic. We know there's curses and ice and stuff. But I mean, we don't know necessarily the fundamentals of magic. We don't know how all of it works or the limitations, and so we don't know exactly what this means towards Subaru. So I'm kind of curious, and hopefully eventually that gets dived into and we find out exactly why Subaru is a little bit different around spirits, and this might explain maybe why Betelgeuse was able to get into Subaru all along, because I mean, look, Subaru has a strong affinity to spirits, and if you noticed at the time when Betelgeuse went into Subaru, we saw the exact scene. If you go towards the end of the episode when Subaru sees Emilia and all that and he's about to talk to her, you see it to where the spirit, the little red dot spirit, it just flies out of Subaru. It just completely flies out of him, and Subaru just starts getting infected, and he has to run. He's in pain, his mind is being taken over. And what this looks like to me, if I had to place any money on the table, it's kind of like someone is transferring their soul or spirit to someone else. It's like he's transferring his entire subconsciousness and his spirit into someone else's body and taking over their body. And when you saw when the little spirit jumped out of Subaru, it looked like maybe it was trying to imply that there was only room enough for one spirit inside of Subaru to kind of be there for him. And that's kind of what happened. You had to where Betelgeuse kicked out the spirit away, and Betelgeuse took over Subaru. So maybe since Subaru has such a high affinity towards spirits, that might explain maybe why he got taken over. Maybe it's not the gospel. It could possibly be the gospel he's carrying on him, but it might be because he has a strong connection to spirits. Now, moving past this point, let's get back on to the beginning again before I get into any more Betelgeuse stuff. So Subaru, after that scene, we get to find out what Ram is actually trying to do. So she is not a part of the witch's cult. Everybody was assuming she was a part of the witch's cult. And I discussed this in my last ReZero video, that there's just no way. There's just no way in fuck she is a part of the witch's cult. I explained the details, like, we know that the villagers and everybody, they got a message. We know that. We know Emilia was doing something. She was very exhausted, and we get to find out the reasons for this. But apparently, Ram, she actually came there because she thought Subaru defected. Thought Subaru was someone that was becoming a traitor and was actually going to turn against Emilia and all of them because he sent a blank note, a blank message. And this is something very mysterious because there's no way in fuck Subaru would send a blank message. There's no way. It doesn't make any sense. I could have swore he wrote something, or he would have wrote something. There's just no way you send a damn blank message to someone when you're in this bad of a situation. Now, look, Subaru's made some mistakes in the past, okay? He's made some very, very bad mistakes. But there's no way, after all this shit, he would forget to write on a piece of paper, and he would leave it blank. I call bullshit. I call insta-bullshit on that. I do. There's no way Subaru forgot to write on a damn piece of paper. He seemed shocked when she said that it was blank. He actually looked shocked. He's like, what the fuck? Now, they didn't really dive into this detail a whole lot. Subaru mentioned it a couple times, and he's like, I need to go talk to Emilia and all that to kind of clear up the misunderstanding of this blank letter. It was never completely dived into, but there's just no way Subaru sent a blank letter. Or at the very least, someone sent a blank letter, unless the letter was changed when it was sent to Emilia's mansion. That's the only thing I could assume, because we do know the witch's cult was infiltrating amongst the merchants and all that in the entire party. There is a possibility that one of the people that were probably delivering the message, they might have gotten killed, or maybe they were traded out or something, and maybe the witch's cult sent a blank message instead. That might be it. I mean, look, a blank message is supposed to state a declaration of war. That's what was stated in this episode. A blank message is a declaration of war, or a sign that you just don't want to speak to the person. Like you say, fuck you, I don't want to say no words to you. That's kind of what it can mean. So, what if the reason why the message was blank was not because of Subaru, but the witch's cult made it blank to just say that we are having a declaration of war. We're coming to kill your ass. That's kind of what it might have meant. That's my only assumption of what the blank letter could have meant, but Ram coming up to Subaru and all that and trying to ask and see if he was a traitor, it makes a lot of sense, and now we know exactly what was going on with that entire scene. So she didn't, defect to the witch's cult, and, Subaru was actually trying to help them out. She was just coming to make sure everything was fine. Now, when it came to the barrier-wise, now the barrier wasn't like I expected. The entire discussion about Emilia I said last week, I figured the barrier was going to have something to do with maybe the witch's cult, like repelling evil people, for instance, the witch's cult, but it wasn't necessarily for that. It was just repairing the beast for the demons like the mob beast and all that couldn't get inside the town. It wasn't for anything else. Maybe the barrier could detect, evil things and stuff, but at this time, though, it didn't seem like it was really stopping the witch's cult from entering into the village, and it didn't seem like Emilia really came down until all shit started breaking loose. Maybe she did. Maybe it took her a little bit to get to the town. That's a possibility, but it seemed like after the action and all the explosions and shit started happening, that's when Emilia finally came down. So, most likely the barrier wasn't really that effective against the witch's cult. Now, next part to get into, okay? We have it to where we found out that with the witch's cult, they infiltrated inside with the merchants. The merchants, some of the few merchants and all that, they were actually carrying the witch's cult inside of it. And one of the merchants was actually a part of the witch's cult, and Felix actually caught on and then pretty much tranquilized this man where he couldn't move, and all sorts of shit hit the fan. So, because of this, I have to bring something up. Now, this was stated to me. I did not discover this, okay? I'm just going to go off and say, FYI, I'm not the one that discovered this, because it was actually told to me by a fellow Chibi, and many of you might know this fellow Chibi well. It's Mitro in the comments. He actually let me know on Twitter, like when I was, talking about the episode, he talked to me on Twitter. He's like, hey, you need to know this and all that, for you could probably talk about it in the video. So I didn't discover this. I'm just going to say and be honest, I didn't discover this. It was thanks to the help of a fellow Chibi is why I know about this, so I'm just going to talk about it right here, right now. So the merchant that was apparently the one that was a part of the witch's cult, and we know that this merchant that was exploding himself, this person supposedly was the man that introduced Otto. You remember the merchant that was helping Subaru in the other timelines when they were running from the well? And remember Subaru punched this man in the face because he forgot Rim? You remember that? And I talked about how that was a very realistic reaction from Subaru, the way he punched this man in the freaking face. Well, because of this scene right there, apparently this merchant is the one that introduced Subaru to that merchant. And that would mean that everything was set up for Subaru to encounter the well. Which necessarily means that everything, Subaru did in that timeline was already predetermined by Betelgeuse. Betelgeuse was directing Subaru down a certain direction. So what does this mean? Well, this implies what I talked about last week about the gospel. Remember how I stated there's multiple things that this gospel might be capable of? It could possibly increase Subaru's sense. Maybe it could, tell the future. Maybe it has different words in it compared to whoever picks up the book. Maybe different writing or something. Remember how I talked about maybe it might have a predetermined future? Because the way Betelgeuse was talking, how Subaru wasn't in it. And how he's like grand luck or something. Well, what if that was correct? And what if the reason why it seemed like Otto was introduced to Subaru the entire time was because it was predetermined and Betelgeuse was directing Subaru down a certain path for he can meet him and all that shit could happen to him with the white well and stuff. What if? I'm just throwing it out there. Now, like I said, I'm not the one that came up with this. Now the gospel stuff I was talking about, but I'm talking about when it came to Otto and stuff and the merchant's identity, introducing him and all that. This was mentioned. I'm not the one that mentioned that. I'm not the one that came up with this. I didn't think about that because it completely just slipped my fucking mind. So I'm just going to say right now that that's an interesting theory. That's a very good possibility. It adds weight to what I said last week about the future possibility that maybe that gospel can tell some future events. That might be a possibility now, especially if that is really true. I got to go back and look and confirm for myself to see if that merchant was in fact the person that introduced Subaru to this other merchant. I will definitely have to look into that. I definitely will. Now, getting off of that, let's talk about the scene with Subaru talking to the entirety of the villagers. He was talking to everyone and how they need to evacuate or get out of the village. This scene carries so much weight. For one, it shows maturity, and we've already seen time and time again recently that Subaru has definitely matured to a point to where he's a way better human being now. I mean, he's a really way better person. And the way he displayed himself, and he realized that he might be being too selfish at that scene when he was talking to them and how they were reacting, it just goes to show you maturity and how he's moved past what he did in the past. And how he is now understanding some of the problems with his person and how he's trying to correct himself and understand from their point of view. That scene was a very good scene. And it also holds more weight. We understand why the villagers are acting that way. Because, granted, the way the villagers are acting, it makes sense. It legit makes sense. Like, let me explain why the villagers are acting like this. At the end of the day, if you were in a village, okay, and you were in that time with ReZero, you're in a village, you're minding your own business, you're selling crops, doing whatever, okay? You're just doing whatever, villagers do. And then all of a sudden you found out that the person, the lord of this land, decided to endorse a half-elf and then make this person a candidate for the throne, and you know how the witch's cult reacts. You're instantly going to have to, you're going to despise the half-elf. You're going to be like, what the fuck? This is going to cause us all to get killed and attacked by the witch's cult. Everybody knew this. Everybody kind of figured that's what was going to happen. It wasn't something that someone wouldn't understand, unless you're not from the world. So because of this, it's kind of understandable why they dislike Emilia, or why they don't want to associate with her, is because when a half-elf is around, witches, or the witch's cult will come to attack Emilia and attack everybody around. And so they wanted to distance her away from her, and then also because of this, that's why they resent her, why they dislike her, is because she's bringing all these problems to them. And so it's kind of understandable when you think about it at the end of the day, that why they dislike Emilia, why they don't want to be around her, is probably because of that reason. They're endangering, or she's endangering their lives, and she knows it, and they know it, and literally, it's not really their fault. It's kind of understandable when you think about it like that. I mean, the witch's cult wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Emilia, and Emilia knows this. And we've seen her way she's interacted with Subaru before, and how she's interacted with other people in town and stuff, and villagers. We've seen the way she's interacted, and how she kind of distanced herself away from people, and how there's prejudice against half-elves and stuff like that. So because of this, we do know now that the way the villagers are reacting, it makes sense, since they know that Emilia was there the day before talking about the witch's cult and how they're coming. She was trying to warn everyone. It lets you know that the reason why they thought Subaru was lying the entire time was because Emilia was already there trying to convince them, and then Subaru coming down right then and there the day after, they're like, you're obviously lying. It's not about demons in the forest and shit. It's obviously the witch's cult is coming, and that's why you're saying this right now. So I like how that was done, of how all the villagers reacting like that towards Subaru, is because they knew he was lying, and it was thanks to Emilia being there the day before. Now, getting off of that, let's get back into the fight. So, as we know, one of the witch's cult members exploded, and you had where Subaru, he was in the merchant's, cart. Everything exploded. He was saved by the little red spirit. Now, Felis is something that's very interesting about that entire scene. Regardless of what everybody wants to say, holy crap, Felis for Best Trap 2016. I gotta say it. Like, I'm so confused right now. Felis is just so cute and adorable, and just the way Felis was acting in this episode. Goddamn. Damn. So, getting off of that, though. Felis survived the explosion. Now, we do know Felis has healing magic. We know this. We know about this. It's not something that was just popped up with this episode. But, however, the explosion was incredibly powerful. It was an incredibly powerful explosion. We know how Subaru survived, because he was protected by the spirit. Felis said, hey, protect Subaru. And then the spirit put a shield. How did Felis survive from an explosion like that? Like, how? I mean, if you get hit by an explosion dead on, you're gonna be freaking hurt. Regardless if you can use healing magic, there's a possibility the explosion could kill you instantly. Like, that close. It would kill you instantly. So how is Felis alive right now? Like, how? How is that a thing right now? All the clothes got completely torn off, but how? My question at the end of the day right now. That's one of my big questions I have with this episode. Anyways, the fights. The fighting in this episode, oh. I love how Wilhelm is fighting and all that, how everybody else is fighting. It was such good scenes in this episode to see how they're learning to fight against Betelgeuse's unseen hands, how they're using, like, dust particles and all that to fight him. It's so cool. And I liked how Betelgeuse outsmarted Wilhelm at the end of the fight, like in the middle with the old man. He's like, hey, if you pay attention so closely to the unseen, then you won't see the seen. And then he tries to stab Wilhelm in the eye. That was a very, very, very good scene. Very good scene. Like, that was so good. Such a good scene, because he was like, if you focus so hard on my one ability, you won't see what's coming with a dagger in my right hand. That was a good scene. I'm a big fan of that scene. Well executed scene, and seeing how Betelgeuse was able to do that goes to show you how smart he is. Even though he might be a little bit mad and crazy, he's incredibly intelligent, he's very powerful, and to see how he did something like that, damn. I have a little bit more respect for our villain of this arc. I really do, just to see how he was able to do that to Wilhelm. Now, that being said, after that entire thing happens, eventually Subaru gets dragged into the forest, or he runs into the forest from, once again, another finger that is Betelgeuse. And this time, Subaru uses something that I didn't expect either. He uses what Emilia had placed the day before when she was setting up the barrier in the forest. Subaru grabs one of the crystals Emilia set up to make it to where Betelgeuse, since he has such a strong witch's scent radiating out of him, obviously the demons and beasts and stuff in the forest will attack him. We know that was one of the reasons why Subaru was getting attacked in the second act. And now seeing how Subaru is able to grab the crystal and hide his scent and be completely fine, and then how Betelgeuse's finger got attacked, that was quick thinking. Very intelligent from Subaru, the way he outsmarted her. A very violent scene, too. Oh my god, dude, that was a very violent scene. How the Betelgeuse's finger just get bit in the arm and then just screaming and all that, and you just see the blood gushing in the background, and then he just walks off like everything's fine. Such a violent scene. That was a really damn violent scene. Whoa, very violent. Now, after that being said, everything seemed to be fine. Everything seemed to work out. Emilia killed the last finger and was fighting. Emilia's back up and started fighting everything. And that conversation is probably one of the most important conversations of this episode, which I'm going to dive into. So, Emilia has a fight with Betelgeuse. One of the fingers of Betelgeuse, which is, in fact, Betelgeuse. She has a fight with him. And there's one word said in this fight that stands out, as always, in ReZero. He states, my witch, my love, this grand love. It's a little bit different wording, but still, he says my witch to Emilia. Why? That entire dialogue. He could have been talking about the Witch of Envy, Satala. That's a possibility. But the way he was crying as soon as he saw Emilia, and he had these tears coming out of his eyes, like he just saw God itself. Like he literally saw his God. And then he started crying, and then he started talking about, my witch, and all that, and then love. It raises questions about Emilia, and what she truly is, and her connection to Satala. It raises a hell of a lot of questions from that dialogue, and at the end of the day, I don't really know what to say, besides what has already been said. Maybe Emilia is some form of, relative of Satala. Maybe Emilia is Satala. I mean, there's just many theories out there that's already been discussed, and I don't need to get into it because many have already talked about it. But that raises a lot of questions with Betelgeuse stating, my witch, my love, and it starts crying like he literally saw God. That's how he looked. Now, one of the big things that nobody's really talked about is that, what if, after Subaru dies, what if Betelgeuse continues to be in his body? Think about that. What if he stays in his body after Subaru dies? Would that mean when Subaru goes back in time, will Betelgeuse still be in his body, or will his soul get detached and will he be thrown out? I'm very curious about this, because if it goes down that route, this could add a very good character interactions between Betelgeuse and Subaru if Betelgeuse stays in his body, if Subaru is in fact dead. I really want to see this. I really hope that's the path it goes. I'd like to see something along the lines of that if Betelgeuse carries back in time with Subaru. Now, that being said, overall, the episode was an enjoyable episode. I had a blast with, watching this episode. Watched it multiple times. Very sorry that this is uploaded late. I was a little bit sickish today. Very sickish. I had the stomach virus. I had it yesterday, and I kind of had it the day before. But, I was, kind of sickish today. I kind of slept it off a little bit. Please forgive me for that. And the vlog, I know many of you have been asking about the vlog. It'll be uploaded very soon after this video and the other videos. I'll have to edit it and stuff. Just very sick, and please forgive me about that. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.